Good afternoon once again. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. This is RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for live streaming in. And before we even get started today, a shout out to all of the production staff and the crew behind the scenes here at Right Side as we bring you a lot of material today, especially about Operation Epic Fury. And we'll have a number of live interviews as we get ready to go to Washington, D.C. for the White House press briefing with Karoline Leavitt. Of course, that's slated to start at 1 p.m. Eastern. A bit later today, we'll have a second broadcast as the president will participate in a roundtable on a ratepayer protection pledge. That roundtable to take place in the Eisenhower Executive Office building just adjacent to the White House, specifically the West Wing there. So that will be an event later. Our time for broadcast will be 2:30 Eastern later today. But again, it is now noon on the East Coast, 9 a.m. out there on the West Coast. Thanks so much for live streaming in from coast to coast, and those watching, of course, in the Central Time Zone and the Mountain Time Zone, whether you're watching live or on replay. Thank you again for streaming in. Let's now go over some of the most notable moments from this morning's Department of War presser. Let's take a look at clip number one.
Good morning. I stand before you today with one unmistakable message about Operation Epic Fury. America is winning, decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy. Under the direct command of President Trump, the War Department unleashed this operation early Saturday morning, just 4 days ago, which means we need to remember two things. First, we are only 4 days into this. Metrics are shifting, dust is settling, and more forces are arriving. It's very early. And as President Trump has said, we will take all the time we need to make sure that we succeed. Second, we are only 4 days into this. And the results have been incredible. Historic, really. Only the United States of America could lead this. Only us. But when you add the Israeli Defense Forces, a devastatingly capable force, the combination is sheer destruction for our radical Islamist Iranian adversaries. They are toast, and they know it. Or at least, soon enough, they will know it. And we have only just begun to hunt, dismantle, demoralize, destroy, and defeat their capabilities, just 4 days in. Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace. I hope all the folks watching understand what uncontested airspace and complete control means. It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders, flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over. And Iran will be able to do nothing about it. B-2s, B-52s, B-1s, Predator drones, fighters, controlling the skies, picking targets. Death and destruction from the sky, all day long. Thus far, Operation Epic Fury has delivered twice the air power of shock and awe of Iraq in 2003, minus Paul Bremer and the nation building. The campaign has 7 times the intensity of Israel's previous operations against Iran during the 12-day war. 7 times. And as President Trump said, more and larger waves are coming. We are just getting started. We are accelerating, not decelerating. Iran's capabilities are evaporating by the hour, while American strength grows fiercer, smarter, and utterly dominant. More bombers and more fighters are arriving just today. And now, with complete control of the skies, we will be using 500-pound, 1,000-pound, and 2,000-pound GPS and laser-guided precision gravity bombs, of which we have a nearly unlimited stockpile. We used more exquisite standoff munitions at the start, but no longer need to. Our stockpiles of those, as well as Patriots, remains extremely strong. The enemy can no longer shoot the volume of missiles they once did, not even close. And the chairman will lay out some of those percentages. So our air defenses and that of our allies have plenty of runway. We can sustain this fight easily for as long as we need to. And as I said yesterday, we set the terms. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality. The terms of this war will be set by us at every step. As I said Monday, the mission is laser focused. Obliterate Iran's missiles and drones and facilities that produce them, annihilate its navy and critical security infrastructure, and sever their pathway to nuclear weapons. Iran will never possess a nuclear bomb, not on our watch, not ever. And this is why President Trump's moral clarity on Iran today is so vital. Unlike the past, where vague red lines and endless negotiations let Iran fund terror and inch ever so slightly toward a bomb, this president sees the threat plainly and acts decisively. No more half measures, especially when Iran is at its weakest. No more letting Tehran play for time while our people pay the price. His leadership ensures that we finish what we start and that we protect our warfighters by crushing the enemy before they can strike again. Our offensive operations, refined through months of relentless preparation, are unstoppable. And our defensive efforts are unprecedented.
All right, so you saw that press conference from this morning that started at 8 a.m. right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. That was the second, of course, press conference in just a week for Operation Epic Fury as we enter day 5 in that conflict in the Middle East. Of course, we have a lot to get to specifically with Operation Epic Fury. There's a lot of other stories going on in that 24/7 news cycle. This, of course, as we await Karoline Leavitt at the White House for that press briefing, which starts at around 1 o'clock Eastern. Sometimes it starts a bit later, sometimes right on time, but we'll be here for it. Thanks so much for live streaming in with us. Let's continue with Operation Epic Fury because the United States Central Command, led by Admiral Brad Cooper, also gave us an operational update on Operation Epic Fury. Let's take a look at clip 2.
Good afternoon. I'm Admiral Brad Cooper, the commander of United States Central Command. In this capacity, I lead U.S. military forces in the Middle East. I'm here to provide you an update on Operation Epic Fury, now in our 4th day of execution. First, I'd like to express my deepest condolences to the families and teammates of the extraordinary Americans who've been killed in action. And I'd also like to extend our prayers for a speedy recovery to the wounded. Yesterday, you heard from Secretary Hegseth and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Today, I'd like to give you an operational update on where we are and provide you with some key facts. By order of the President of the United States and the Secretary of War, our military in the Middle East is undertaking an unprecedented operation to eliminate Iran's ability to threaten Americans as they've been doing for nearly half a century. Having spent more than 36 years in the military, I could not be prouder of America's sons and daughters in uniform who are answering the call. More than 50,000 troops, 200 fighters, 2 aircraft carriers, and bombers from the United States are participating in this operation, and more capability is on the way. These forces bring a massive amount of firepower, representing the largest buildup by the U.S. in the Middle East in a generation. In the opening hours of Operation Epic Fury, U.S. Central Command forces, together with Israel, delivered overwhelming and unprecedented strikes into Iran. Many of you may remember the shock and awe strikes of 2003. The first 24 hours of this operation were nearly double the scale, and we continue with 24/7 strikes into Iran from seabed to space and cyberspace. Now, we're less than 100 hours into this operation, and we've already struck nearly 2,000 targets with more than 2,000 munitions. We have severely degraded Iran's air defenses and destroyed hundreds of Iran's ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. And in simple terms, we're focused on shooting all the things that can shoot at us. Our B-2 bombers and B-1 bombers have executed uncontested surgical strikes against multiple missile facilities deep inside Iran. And then just last night, a B-52 bomber force struck ballistic missile and command and control posts. We are also sinking the Iranian Navy, the entire Navy. Thus far, we've destroyed 17 Iranian ships, including the most operational Iranian submarine that now has a hole in its side. For decades, the Iranian regime has harassed international shipping. Today, there's not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or Gulf of Oman, and we will not stop. We will continue to conduct dynamic targeting operations. We're hunting Iran's last remaining mobile ballistic missile launchers to eliminate what I would characterize as their lingering launch capability. Now, in retaliation, the Iranian regime has launched over 500 ballistic missiles and over 2,000 drones. To be clear, Iran is indiscriminately targeting civilians as they launch these missiles and drones. You've seen it on TV. The evidence is crystal clear and overwhelming. Having said this, we are seeing Iran's ability to hit us and our partners is declining, while our combat power, on the other hand, is building. And my overall operational assessment is that we are ahead of our game plan. Along the way, every single branch of our military is achieving unprecedented success. I'll talk about just a few of them. Our naval forces have deployed multiple waves of cruise missiles, obliterating Iranian command and control and air defense capabilities. From 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, we're squeezing Iran from the sea and have them backed into their own ports. U.S. air forces are doing what they do best, executing a high volume of airstrikes right into Iran. Operationally, the 2 most powerful air forces in the world, the U.S. and Israel, are dominating the skies of the world's largest state sponsor of terror. Our U.S. Army soldiers are defending ourselves and our partners, and in a historic first, the U.S. Army fired long-range precision strike missiles called PRISMs in combat, providing an unrivaled deep strike capability. Also for the first time, U.S. Central Command's drone task force, called Task Force Scorpion Strike, launched countless one-way attack drones, achieving massive effects. I'd like to point out these drones were originally an Iranian design. We took them back to America, made them better, and fired them right back at Iran. I just could not be prouder of our men and women in uniform, leveraging innovation to create dilemmas for the enemy. There is no adversary too determined, no mission too difficult for the great soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen that make up the most powerful military the world has ever seen. Our military objectives are crystal clear, and our people are executing an immensely complex and historic mission with relentless lethality, conviction, and professionalism. And we've just begun. But I have the utmost confidence that we, alongside our partners, will absolutely achieve our military objectives. To all our warriors, Godspeed. Thanks so much.
All right, so the Admiral Brad Cooper there giving us a breakdown on the Operation Epic Fury. Of course, there's a lot of new angles today, a lot of people talking about the war, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, and others. We're going to be joined live by a great guest coming up in just a minute. But before we get to all of that, let's go to some of our sponsors here on Right Side. You may have seen the conversations happening out there. Censorship, unfortunately, is back, and it's happening everywhere. Platforms are controlling narratives and pushing the stuff they want us to see. So, of course, we can fight back in that information and financial arena because Rumble is one of the only companies that has stood the test of time and deserves our support. On one side, Rumble is challenging big tech censorship, and now on the other side, they have introduced something that will give us protection from the big banks shutting us off. Banks can, unfortunately, they can cancel our accounts, freeze our cards, so that's why Rumble has launched Rumble Wallet. It's a wallet that no one can cancel and a wallet that supporters can use to instantly tip creators like us and others without any middleman taking the cuts. And with Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company, not even Rumble can touch it. So all you have to do is just go to wallet.rumble.com, wallet.rumble.com. You can also search for Rumble Wallet in the app stores. Great sponsor here, obviously airing on Rumble as well, along with a number of other platforms, but awesome to have Rumble out there. Wallet.rumble.com. Great sponsor. Let's go also to one more sponsor before we get to our live guest on Right Side Broadcasting Network. You see it right there, Cove Pure. We're past all of the new year, new me kind of stuff out there. This is the part where we either forget about it or we make it easy enough that we can actually follow through. That's where Cove Pure comes in. Here's the thing. Most people tend to go overboard buying new supplements and trying a new diet or workout, but they completely ignore the most important basic thing right there, water. Even mild dehydration impacts energy, focus, and metabolism. And when you think about all the garbage that's in the water, you're starting behind the curve before you even begin. And Cove Pure changes that immediately. Their Cove Pure technology is actually certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants, pretty much anything that isn't water. So those PFAs, microplastics, pharmaceutical residue, fluoride, it all gets removed. And it's simply the purest water out there when it comes to these great filters. And what's amazing about Cove Pure is it lets you choose the temperature of your water, hot, cold, and warm. So a lot of great details there for covepure.com/RSBN. Again, $250 off for a limited time, covepure.com/RSBN. It is 12/15 Wednesday, March 4th. A lot going on out there in our world, of course, covering a lot throughout our country and across the globe. Joining us now is United States Marine retired Lieutenant Colonel Assad Khan, author of the book Betrayal of Command. First, sir, thank you so much for your service to our nation. Can you tell us about your military service, your book, and your reaction to Operation Epic Fury?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Obviously I served in the Marine Corps. I commanded an infantry battalion in Afghanistan, and then I retired, and I'm also a foreign area officer for the Middle East. And I happen to be in the Middle East, and I wrote about my experiences in the book Betrayal of Command. It's a pretty good read. I think most of your viewers will probably enjoy it.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of traction on Amazon and other places as well for that book. Can you talk to us about specifically what years you served? I know it was in Afghanistan, correct? And tell us what it was like to serve in our United States military as a lieutenant colonel, and then maybe juxtapose that to what it's like out there, what you're seeing out there today with the leadership of Pete Hegseth.
Yeah, so I loved it. I mean, I served from 1985 to 2005. And, I had 2 tours actually in Afghanistan. I was there in 2001 in the early days. And then I came back, trained up an infantry battalion, took them back to Afghanistan. We fought in the Oruzgan province and Zabul province as high as 10,000 feet with about 1,000 submarines and 200 Afghan militia fighters. And, the Marines did fantastic. Very proud of them to this day. And the book really talks about my experiences. If I juxtapose that, to what's going on now, obviously I miss the Marine Corps. I mean, I love it too. I've got, very passionate about it. And, and there's a lot going on in our military. Some of the changes that I've seen in the military so far are fantastic. I think they're right on. The military should be based on meritocracy. And the reason being is when you go to combat, the enemy is unpredictable, and combat in itself is unpredictable, and war is uncontrollable. So you need the best and the most highly trained people in combat to serve on either side of you. And that's the most important thing. I took 1,200 Marines into combat. Unfortunately, I brought back 1,199, and that still bothers me to this day. And my book sort of talks about that as well. So it's important that our military is highly trained, and it's important that they're led by the best possible leadership that we can give our young troops. And it's important that we have accountability. And since we're talking about it, what happened on 26th August 2021 in Afghanistan, to this day we haven't had accountability. Now think about that. It took us 4 years to mobilize the military, go to Europe and the Pacific, defeat the Germans and the Japanese. In 4 years we did that. It's been 4.5 years and we haven't had accountability. So accountability is very important, especially for the senior leadership in the military.
Exactly. So, sir, then on top of that, I saw some videos online of you out there, Lieutenant Colonel Assad Genghis Khan out there speaking to a number of Marines and others. What would you say to those that could be possibly watching right now, or just families that have loved ones overseas? What would you say to a warfighter at this moment?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing right now, you got to focus on what the task at hand. That's the bottom line. The nation's at war, and you need to make sure that you take care of the Marine, soldier, sailor, Coast Guardsman on your left and right. That's your number one responsibility right now. Then after that, for the families, hey, they need 100% support. My family supported me when I was in combat. My son was also a Marine. He also went to combat. And it's important that the parents and the families and the loved ones and the wives and the sons and daughters support your soldier, sailor, Marine. when they go off to combat. And it's very tragic that we lose people. It's going to happen, and it's very unfortunate. It still bothers me to this day that I lost Corporal Ron Payne. But that's what we signed up for, to do the nation's hard work. And the important thing is that we have the best training out there. We've got the best troops. We've got the best training, and we've got the best equipment out there. And it's important to be well trained before you go overseas to do the nation's bidding.
And then on top of that, we've been monitoring United States Central Command videos here at Right Side. We've been tossing to a number of those videos that they've been posting. Have you been tracking those videos? What's your reaction to see an Iranian mobile launcher thinking it's going to do some damage, and then our military just destroys it? And then on top of that, how about the submarine recently taking out, one of the Iranian ships there as well?
Yeah, it's a good feeling. I mean, that's what we train for, right? I mean, but at the end of the day, you can never underestimate the enemy, right? And Iran has been preparing for this conflict for decades, for minimum 4 decades. And I would not underestimate them by any means. But by the same token, this has just begun. We don't know how long it's going to last. I anticipate right now it's going to last about 2 weeks more. And the reason being is from first day when they're firing the missiles, they've gone down about 80% in terms of how many missiles they're launching. And just in one day, they've gone down 23%. But I do have a concern. And my concern is if we push them far enough, this regime, that they may cross the nuclear threshold, then what? The rules of the game change. So that's something we need to think at the back of their mind. They enrich their uranium to about 60%. I'm no expert on nuclear physics and all that stuff, but I have stayed in a Holiday Inn Express, But we got to be careful here because what I'm told in my research, it's basically takes about a week to 10 days to get up to the 90% threshold for a nuclear weapon. So that's dangerous. And what do we do if they cross that threshold? What's the game plan? What's the end state? So those are some of the big concerns that I have.
We've heard from the United States government that what has happened so far is basically a lot smaller than what's about to happen or what is happening right now. Pete Hegseth talking about making shock and awe look like nothing compared to what's happening there in Iran. They're also saying this isn't supposed to be a long ground war with troops with boots on the ground there. More of a surgical strike, lots of surgical strikes, as you know. If that's what happens and we free people in Iran and it's a surgical strike and we move on, would you be pleased with that? And then on top of that, what would be your reaction if this was a long war in Iran?
The problem that we're having right now is, I heard Admiral Cooper, and we've basically attacked roughly about 4,000 targets over the last 5 days, right? And with great success, what you're talking about, the launchers and all that. But sooner or later, you're going to run out of targets. And if you can't acquire targets through their electronic signature or their IR signature, then what do? And you can't keep reattacking the same target because that's a waste of resources and logistics because all this stuff costs a lot of money. So at that point, you got to get boots on the ground. You got to get those special operations forces on the ground to acquire the targets, verify the targets, to laze them, and get ordnance on them from our aircraft. Now, it seems to me that this administration and Hegseth has a plan because we're evidently arming the Kurds in Western Iran. And just like we did in Afghanistan, and I was there when this happened, when we started arming the Afghans, the warlords and the militias, the Northern Alliance, and then we embedded, the CIA paramilitary amongst them, including the special forces, if you remember, the horse soldiers and whatnot. So something similar may happen with the Kurds, but here's the warning. We got sucked into a 20-year war in Afghanistan, and we certainly don't want to get sucked into that. So that's one part. The second part is the Kurds have their own aspirations. You've got Turkish Kurds, you've got Iraqi Kurds, you've got Iranian Kurds, and they want Kurdistan. So this is going to really play, it's going to play out at the back end. And, we really got to think through this. And if the Kurds end up getting their Kurdistan, that's going to fragment Iran. It's going to fragment Iraq, and Turkey's not going to be happy because they're going to end up losing some territory. So we may end up in a bigger mess down the road. So we really got to think this stuff through at the end of the day. Short-term gains could be long-term catastrophic strategic problems for us.
So we'll see. We're monitoring what happens there. But last question, sir, 30,000-foot view. It seems that under the leadership of Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, there's a new competency in the military. The cuffs are off. He's able to freely use our military firepower. And then what we saw in Venezuela, a quick surgical strike and out, Maduro gone. This is probably the same goal, what we're seeing here in Iran. Finally, your thoughts about the leadership of Pete Hegseth.
Well, I think Hegseth's doing a pretty damn good job, quite frankly. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When his name first came up, and I'm thinking, National Guard major, you got to be kidding me. He wrote a couple of books. He's on Fox and Friends or whatever on TV. But what I like about him, he's making decisions and he's making change happen. And you could say that his predecessors were so qualified, but they didn't do the things that needed to be done. So Hegseth is sharpening the sword. I love what he's done with meritocracy in our military. Military's got to be based on meritocracy, because I want to go into combat with the best person on my left and right. I don't want to go with the person that just, got something handed to him, some rank or whatever. So I think Hegseth is right on the money. He's really got to make sure that we continue to raise our standards, and I really applaud him for what he's done. I'm a huge fan of Pete Hegseth right now, believe it or not.
Thank you, sir. United States Marine retired Lieutenant Colonel Assad Genghis Khan. Thank you for your service to our country and your insight. Semper Fi, sir.
Thank you. Semper Fi.
Thank you. All right, 12/26, Wednesday, March 4th. Getting insight from people, of course, that have served in our country, and also I believe it's Sentinel 360 is where you can check out some of Mr. Khan's work when it comes to tactical, analysis and that kind of thing. So let's go to a couple of our sponsors as we continue our live broadcast here, getting ready to go to D.C., of course. All Family Pharmacy, you see it on your screen. Ivermectin is back in the headlines. The National Cancer Institute has launched early-stage lab research to study how it works in the body, including how it may interact with cancer cells. Now, this isn't a treatment recommendation, it's early-stage research, but it does highlight how medications that were once pushed to the sidelines are now being studied by major institutions. And as for many Americans, that raises an important question about access. So if you've been looking for a reliable place to get medications like ivermectin or antibiotics, mebendazole, hydroxychloroquine, NAD+, and other prescriptions, All Family Pharmacy makes that process simple. You go online, you complete a short medical form, a licensed physician will review your request and prescribe if appropriate. So All Family Pharmacy believes Americans should be able to be informed on the decisions with their doctors, and they help make that possible. So just go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Great sponsor here on Right Side. Same thing with Birch Gold. Think about this. In 2006, $20,000 equaled roughly 33 ounces of gold at spot price. So 33 ounces of gold is $20,000 back in 06. At today's prices, those 33 ounces would be worth $165,000. Smart Americans are diversifying a portion of their savings into precious metals, and that's why you might want to consider buying gold from our friends at Birch Gold Group. For thousands of years, of course, gold has been a store of wealth, and today it's a crucial part of any balanced strategy. Even better, Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered retirement account in gold. So all you have to do is text Trump to 989898. You get an info kit on gold, no obligation. They have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating and tens of thousands of happy customers. So let Birch Gold help you diversify with gold. Text Trump to 989898. Again, that's Trump to 989898. All right, it is 12/28, Wednesday, March 4th. A lot of news going on out there. Let's go specifically to the following when it comes to the state of Minnesota. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz testified before a House committee today. Here's a little bit of his exchange with Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan for clip 11.
Well, I think it is, because the court did something that I don't know if I've ever seen it. They issued a statement saying you were wrong in what you were saying. This is from the court. It says, Feeding Our Future versus Minnesota Department of Education, correcting reports and statements by Governor Tim Walz concerning orders issued by the court. Here's what the judge says. Governor Tim Walz told the media that the Minnesota Department of Education attempted in payments to FOF because of possible fraud, but that Judge Guthman ordered payments to continue in April 2021. Next sentence. That is false. So you said something that wasn't true. He further states this, Judge Guthman, the court says this, Judge Guthman never ordered the Department of Education to resume payments to Feeding Our Future in April 2021 or at any other time. So I want to know, why didn't you tell the truth?
Congressman, the attorneys at the Department of Education interpreted that differently. Both of those judges are no longer on the bench, and I think that interpretation.
The very first sentence, the first 7 words. This is not some unnamed source talking to the New York Times. This is not some anonymous source talking to whatever your Minnesota Star Tribune or whatever your paper is. This is the court speaking. First sentence, first 7 words. Due to inaccurate statements by the governor, Ramsey County District Court judge has issued and authorized this following news release. That's pretty straightforward. So the court's lying?
I can't tell you, Congressman, but the interpretation
Somebody's lying, because you can't say the court ordered you to restart the payments, and then the court says we didn't order you to restart the payments. So either you're lying or the court's lying. And I'm just asking you, which one is it?
I just simply know what the attorneys at the agency believed, that it was a misinterpretation. And I would note that those payments.
Could it be you were trying to hide behind the court, Governor? Could that maybe be the reason why you issued the statements you did and why the court had to do something you never see done before? They issue a press statement saying you're wrong. The governor is wrong. His statement is, their words, not mine, false.
Okay, so we saw Jim Jordan of Ohio handling Tim Walz there. Of course, Tim Walz, man, not a great governor at all in Minnesota. But let's now go to a great patriot running for governor in Minnesota, none other than Mike Lindell. Mike, thanks so much for joining us on Right Side once again.
Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. Let's talk about the latest with your campaign in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, here's tonight, and we have a huge event tonight. And what's been going on is I really believe I'm the only one that can win Minnesota. You're running against all these other Republicans, and some of them, like this Lisa Dama, she's the Speaker of the House. Well, all the fraud under Minnesota, it happened on her watch too, even though she's a Republican. And she's been in there for a long time, and we need a businessman. We need a different input to get a different output. And I've been going around to these debates, and everyone's going, well, you're looking to get the GOP endorsement, and then everyone's going, are you going to abide by that or whatever? Well, right now, no, I'm not going to abide by whatever they decide, because I'm polling number 1 with the people. They just did a poll 3 weeks ago. I'm number 1. And here in Minnesota, the primary isn't until August. And what happens is Minnesota, you can vote 45 days early. Well, by the time you get someone picked, you're right away. Everybody's already voting, and you have to raise all this money. And this has always been a problem in Minnesota. I can raise money because I'm a national, a name. And Minnesota is in the eye right now. It's the tip of the spear for everything, for all kinds of things that affect our whole nation. And so I've already raised upwards of $1 million, which is a lot for, outside of Minnesota. And I have not only having the solutions, but Matt, we had 250,000 people in Minnesota that voted for Donald Trump in 2020 that didn't even bother to get out and vote in 2022. So, as you know, I'm a marketer. I'm going to be going all over Minnesota to get these people engaged to vote and out to vote. And I'm going right into Amy Klobuchar. We talk about Amy Klobuchar, you guys. Walz dropped out, remember, because of all the fraud. Who knows? He might end up in prison. We don't know. We don't know where Walz is going to end up, but he certainly isn't going to be our next governor anymore. So you have Amy Klobuchar leave her Senate seat to run for governor now. I think she's very concerned when I put my name in. And I want to tell really quick, everybody, think of this, because I'm going to be putting out an ad. You're hearing it first, Matt. I'm putting out an ad that's going to say, Amy Klobuchar and Mike Lindell agree on come together on a historical agreement. Now everyone's going to go, wow, what is this all about? Well, you guys, here's what we agreed on. In 2018 and 19, Amy was the biggest voice in the nation to get rid of the voting machines and to go to paper ballots hand counted. Amy Klobuchar, everybody, in the movie Kill Chain, she was out there and all the Democrats were, we got to get rid of the machines. And she named them. She didn't get sued. But we both agreed that we had to take care of the fraud in our elections. Well, since that time, here's the tale of two people. Mike Lindell spent, I don't know, 50, 60 million, everything I had in the world to fight the fraud for the last 5 years. And what did Amy do? And during that same time, she went to our government, the federal government, and got, I don't know, 25 billion put into Minnesota for these welfare programs, and it's gone.
Wow.
It's fraud.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty amazing. I'm learning a lot as I'm running here, and people say, "Well, Mike Lindell comes with baggage, and he's too branded with Donald Trump." This is what my own party's saying here. Well, you know what? That baggage is the receipts. The baggage I have, not the conspiracy theory. It's all coming out now. The election was stolen. You got Georgia, everything coming out. Of course it was stolen. And of course we have problems in our election. That's a good thing. I believe we're going to have the most secure election in Minnesota's history based on, or since the machines came in, based on what the cards were dealt with here. I will make sure of that. And so it's MikeLindellGov.com, everybody. It's MikeLindellGov.com. See what I'm doing. My policies. Matt, there's so many common sense things. I'm going to give you one here real quick. In Minnesota, you guys, the illegals that are here in our prisons, okay, we pay $85,000 a year in Minnesota taxpayers to house these. And these are felons. These are ones that have committed murder, rape, they're in prisons, not jails, prisons. It's $110 million a year. Now, just think how easy this would be. And then this doesn't count our jails where they're misdemeanors and gross misdemeanor with these illegals. Remember, they've already committed a crime by coming into our country illegally. If you took those and just, cooperated with the federal government and say, hey, we're not going to house these, and you turn them over and get rid of them, send them back to their countries to do their time there, you don't have to have people, ICE going door to door anymore. And then we talk about what's going on up here in Minnesota. Minneapolis has one of the best protest laws in the nation, but they've never been followed. We have some of the most strictest. You got to get permits, all kinds of stuff. So you enforce your protest laws or you start arresting these people. You bring back law enforcement. Right now, you guys don't see it in the news, but friends of mine that live downtown Minneapolis, they're getting stopped by protesters going in the middle of the road and on sidewalk. Do you live in these streets? Show us your ID. How ironic is that? They're impeding people from getting to their homes, these protesters, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's a lot of illegal activity going on there, the fraud, the waste, the abuse, all the things. But what you touched on at the beginning, Mike, was something simple. You're a man of the people. I mean, it's not even a phrase that you can just use out there on a bumper sticker. Your actions have spoken louder than words for decades. The people love you. We know that. We hope that they will understand that Minnesota's on the line coming up for this election. And someone like you, the pendulum swinging from a Waltz to a Lindell sounds really good to me. Let's talk about the Save America Act as well, sir. How important is that for the U.S. Senate to kick it into high gear, pass the Save America Act?
This is one of the most important things in our country's history, everybody. This isn't just another little bill thing getting pushed through. Remember, everything we gathered for 5 years that my teams did with the Cause of America, the Election Crime Bureau, all the things I set up, all that information gathering, we turned that all in last spring to the government, and with them to come out now and say, no illegal, illegals can't vote, basically. How hard is that? Show you're a citizen and show a voter ID. 79% of Democrats, we're talking people now, want this. It's like over 80% of all people. Of course you got to check an ID. Man, I really liked it when they showed New York, you had to have 2 forms of ID to shovel snow. 2 forms, everybody, to shovel snow. This is the most common sense thing in the history of the United States, and to have this slow played, and if it gets blocked, it has to. If you know any senators, this should be everybody's number one priority. These elections coming up is critical. I mean, it's the most critical election in history, and I say that because everything could be in vain as how far we've got as a country. And when you have both of the people, this is, if you have politicians sitting there, the Democrats that are going to block this, and maybe a couple of Republicans or try and block it, okay, and they're trying to say, oh, it's suppressing voters or whatever they're trying to say. That's nonsense. I mean, that is absolutely nonsense. But it's the most critical thing. The SAVE Act is huge. And you know what? We have the worst elections in the world. We have 132 countries have banned electronic voting machines. Over 100 have banned early voting and mail-in voting. They all have ID and stuff. I mean, we have the worst election platforms in the world. We've got to grab it. This piece is so critical. And, nobody should be able to vote in our sacred elections that aren't from here. This is disgusting.
It's exactly right. It's common sense. To your point, I remember Elon Musk on X posting a whole list of countries that have to have an ID and have to prove their citizenship to vote. So we need to have that done here. Mike, finally, just any words of encouragement for the country right now. As that act is called the Save America Act. We still need to save our country. We can't just sit back and just, fall asleep at the wheel. This is really about our freedoms, isn't it?
No, this is it. This is the most critical election in our country's history, bar none. Everything could be gone in an instant. The gains we made, the stuff that our great president has been doing, any of that, the things going on now. People need to see. Well, I'm going to give everybody. Here's why I'm so encouraged, everybody. You go back 5 years. And remember, they tried to kill our voice. They tried to kill our voice. On January 7th of 2021, 1.2 million Americans were deplatformed off Vimeo, YouTube, Jack Dorsey's Twitter, Facebook, you name it. Parler was wiped off the face of the earth. What we have this time around is ways to communicate. You got your great show here, Matt. All these platforms now that you don't have to go to your Fox Newses where you're not going to hear anything about our election platforms. You don't have to go to your Newsmaxes because you're not going to hear there about our election platform. And and all the fake news certainly isn't going to report that, hey, we need to get the SAVE Act gone through. This is what people are communicating now through Getter, Gab, True Social, Vocal, Elon's X, even Facebook. At least he's not covering stuff up anymore. Our voice has gotten so much bigger, everybody. You need to communicate that. We need to, if you do anything, everybody, encourage everybody, like on the SAVE Act. You need to hear what we need to move forward, and don't sit around, like you said, Matt. You guys, we're in the best time in history to be alive because we can change the course we're on. And we were on a very bad course where we had taken God out of our schools. We had taken God out of our nation and turned us back on God. And here we are. God's given us grace for such a time as this. I'm very excited. And one of the other things, too, threatening our country, obviously, is Sharia law. That's one of the first things. When I'm governor of Minnesota, I would ban that immediately here. I don't know how it turned out in Texas. I believe they were voting on it, but a lot of states have already banned it. If they can't, you come into our country, you better assimilate and with our Constitution. So,
exactly.
Just everybody keep the faith, everybody, because great things are coming. But we all got to stand firm, be part of it.
Amen. Tommy Tuberville running for governor in Alabama, the same page as you, sir, about Sharia law. Not letting that happen in a state would be a wise thing to do. The gubernatorial candidate from Minnesota, the great owner and patriot, Mike Lindell. Mike, thanks again for joining us on Right Side.
Yeah, Matt, can I say one more thing quick?
Go for it.
Okay, you guys, we're moving. I did a big announcement. My Pillow's still here, and we're moving factories this week. We're moving factories, and we put everything on sale. You got a promo code there you can throw out, Matt, because we're these big ticket items. We're the free shipping. We're doing free shipping on all these, so we don't have to move to the new factory. But My Pillow is stronger than ever.
And then, so it's the Mega Sale 2.0 still going on. Is that what it is?
Yeah, the Mega Sale too, but we're adding mattress toppers and mattresses on sale with free shipping on your entire order. We're going to add that right now because we don't want to move it all to the new factory, and it combined with the Mega Sale. And we have all these products that we're closing out, like our up to 80% off all our clothing lines and stuff. But that's a gift for everybody out there. Free shipping on your entire order.
That's awesome. So it's mypillow.com/RSBN. The great Mike Lindell. Thanks again for everything. We're going to talk more about your products here in just a second. Mike, thank you again.
Okay. Well, add that free shipping on promo code RSBN.
Amen. Free shipping as well. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff there with Mike Lindell running for governor in Minnesota. Also, again, mypillow.com/RSBN. Free shipping right now for all of you out there. So go ahead and check it out. It's always great to talk with Mike and great to hear his insight, especially about election integrity and Save America for the Save America Act. So let's move on here on Right Side. Of course, we'll be talking more about MyPillow in just a minute. It's 12:44, 12:45 Eastern Time. Let's take a real quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on Right Side.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
All right, welcome back to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. We're going to head to Washington, D.C. in just a minute as we'll hear from Karoline Leavitt, the press secretary there in the James S. Brady press briefing room. So as soon as that starts, we'll take you there. We have a number of stories we're tracking here at the network. We're going to go over some of that in just a minute. Let's go to Angel Paste in Texas first. AngelPaste.com, the flagship product right there, the Miracle Cream on the right side of your screen. If you use the RSBN promo code, as you might see at the bottom there, you get 10% off that product. There's a number of other products that you can check out as well with this great sponsor that hires veterans right there in Texas, the Lone Star State. Shout out to those of you guys watching from Texas today and all across our union and in some cases around the world. Thanks so much for live streaming in, angelpaste.com. Let's also go to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, All Family Pharmacy. You know, ivermectin is back in the headlines, and a bit later on our second broadcast, we're actually going to be speaking with the owner of All Family Pharmacy about the following story, because the National Cancer Institute has actually launched early-stage lab research to study how it works in the body, including how it may interact with cancer cells. Now, it's not a treatment recommendation, it's more about the early-stage research, but it does highlight how medications that were once pushed to the sidelines are now being studied by major institutions. And for many Americans, that raises an important question about access. So if you've been looking for a reliable place to get medications like ivermectin or antibiotics, mebendazole, hydroxychloroquine, NAD+, or other prescriptions, All Family Pharmacy makes this process very simple. You go online, complete a short medical form, and a licensed physician reviews your request and prescribes that if appropriate. So All Family Pharmacy simply believes Americans should be able to make informed decisions with their doctors, and they help make this all possible. All you have to do is go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use the RSBN10 promo code for that 10% off. There's also emergency kits available. Check it all out, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. All right, we know that we are grateful for every donor here at the network when you guys have financially given to this network over the years. We're grateful for our sponsorships as well. We want to be able to bring you live broadcasts, interviews, all the things you've seen over the more than a decade now. So thank you again for doing that. Also, as we're 12 minutes from the top of the hour, we are witnessing military history, as the first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. That took place overnight. Here's Secretary Pete Hegseth explaining how it all went down with the video receipt in clip 4.
in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win.
So again, there, Pete Hegseth, the Department of War Secretary, saying that's the first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Of course, that video from the United States Central Command. Meantime, the White House posting a video that says, quote, "From coast to coast, thank you, President Trump, for decisive action against the Iranian regime," end quote. Let's take a look at that video in clip 5.
President Trump has done something historic. Let's recognize that, regardless of partisan and politics of that kind. As a matter of national security, let's recognize what President Trump has done.
That this is the very moment they've been waiting for 47 years. We're shown photos of the people that were allegedly killed by the regime. There were people here holding those photos and saying that this day is for them. President Trump being thanked by name here in this crowd. But some people are even Democratic voters who are praising the president.
Trump is not just saving America. President Trump is saving the world. The people of Iran are so grateful that President Trump is finally the one who helped us out. After the Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas, the Bidens, nobody even cared for the Iranian people as much as President Trump.
Look what the beautiful people out here. They're all shining.
All right, so just showing you what's out there in social media. Of course, a number of you may have already seen a lot of those videos, but what we're doing, of course, is kind of an aggregate of sorts. We're airing a lot of the freshest, newest videos that are out there, whether it's the United States Central Command, whether it's from the Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth, whether it's from the White House, and on. As we have a number of live interviews in store. If you just missed a couple, we had Mike Lindell, of course, the gubernatorial candidate in Minnesota and owner of MyPillow, of course, and also Assad Genghis Khan, a lieutenant colonel, retired lieutenant colonel with the Marines, joined us moments ago. So you might want to replay some of that if you're just joining us now. But really, the live event of the day, of course, as well, is Karoline Leavitt, live with the press briefing. So we'll hear from her at the White House momentarily. It starts in about 8 minutes, that according to the public schedule for the president. However, sometimes it is delayed. So we'll be here with you and going over a number of our stories that we're tracking here in the 24/7 news cycle. But let's go to some of our sponsors again as we continue on here on Right Side. First, talking about donations to Right Side Broadcasting Network. If you'd like to, rsbnetwork.com/donate is the spot to go. To donate to Right Side as we continue to grow, expand, and cover all of this conservative news that we're seeing out there and just simply news that's happening, including Operation Epic Fury. We'll be hearing from the Secretary of War once again in just a little bit and going over some of the details of that. But yeah, if you'd like to donate, go ahead. Obviously, this isn't a cable station where you have to pay some, $70 a month or $150 or all the things. I mean, you can literally watch us right here on the phone for free on Rumble, on YouTube, on X, on our app. But obviously it takes dollars to do all this. We don't have corporate sponsors that are woke paying us to advertise on our network. So it's all about our great sponsors that we do have, that list growing, but also for those of you out there, if you do have a few extra bucks, just go to rsbnetwork.com/donate. And if you don't have a few extra bucks, all good. Thanks for watching. Let's continue to talk about the things that make our country free, right? That's really what it's all about. At the end of the day, that's what this whole thing's about, is freedom for our country. And yeah, sure, it would be great for the world to be free, but The people of the world want that. Unfortunately, we have tyrants, we have globalists, we have some in the deep state, you know. These are the types that don't want that for our country. They want Marxism, or they want all the other things that are all anti what our country's about. Anyway, having said all that, rspnetwork.com/donate. Also, mypillow.com/RSBN. If you'd like to purchase a number of great products there, you heard Mike Lindell earlier, there's free shipping, as you see right there, on your entire order. Also, if you use the RSBN promo code, you'll get that discount as well at checkout. So a lot of great products there, as Mike was talking about as he joined us a bit earlier in the broadcast. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. He spoke to reporters about the reasons behind the military strikes against the Iranian regime. Let's go to clip 6.
Listen, let me explain to you guys this in simple English. Okay? Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. And this is the weakest they've ever been. Now is the time to go after them. The president made the decision to go after them, take away their missiles, take away their navy, take away their drones, take away their ability to make those things so that they can never have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president made this decision. It was the right decision. And the world will be a safer place when these radical clerics no longer have access to these weapons. You see how they're using them now. Imagine how they would use them a year from now if they had.
All right, so we heard that from Secretary of State Marco Rubio within the 24/7 news cycle. Also within the cycle, you know that here on Right Side, we aired a number of events from New York City with the United Nations, as you may have witnessed right here on the network. First Lady Melania Trump presided over a recent UN meeting in New York. Here are some highlights from that event in clip 7.
And look who we have at the United Nations right now. First Lady Melania Trump is presiding over the UN Security Council meeting.
First spouse of a world leader to take the president's seat at the United Nations' most powerful body.
Peace does not need to be fragile. Enduring peace will be achieved when knowledge and understanding are fully valued within all societies. We are in the age of imagination, a period where technology can be free and unrestricted by land borders. We must cultivate a just moral imagination for the next generation, for our children, building an infrastructure of understanding. The path to peace depends on us taking responsibility to empower our children through education and technology. Security Council members, I encourage you to pledge to safeguard learning in our communities and promote access to heightened education for all. I implore you to build a future generation of leaders who embrace peace through education.
You know, I was just thinking during that video there about the First Lady, what a time to be alive, right? What a time to be alive, either reporting on what's going on, but also just witnessing what's happening, you know, in the Middle East right now, in our country. And, you know, you can get into biblical ways as well when it all correlates in certain areas. Not saying that what's happening in the Middle East right now is correlating with anything in the Bible, just saying it's just a wild time to be alive. I was thinking the other day about the Middle East that, you know, Jesus Christ of Nazareth was born there, he died there, he was resurrected there, and also will return again to the Middle East. So I was looking at this Flight Radar 24 earlier today, and it shows the commercial airlines that are flying around, and there's this huge circle with the commercial airlines going around the whole Middle East. Usually it's, you know, one country like Iran. You remember back when Venezuela was happening, the same thing. You just saw this bubble of all these planes that are around. But right now, the whole Middle East, if you look at it, no commercial airlines in that whole region of the earth. And it's just sometimes, you know, to take that perspective of what's going to happen next. All right, so let's go to some of our sponsors in the meantime. We're about a couple minutes away from going to the White House. As soon as we see that live feed with Karoline Leavitt, we'll take you there. Ivermectin, back in the headlines. The National Cancer Institute has launched early-stage lab research to study how it works in the body, including how it may interact with cancer cells. Now, this isn't a treatment recommendation, but it's early-stage research, but it does highlight how medications that were once pushed to the sidelines are now being studied by major institutions. And as for many Americans, that raises an important question for access. So if you've been looking for a reliable place to get medications like ivermectin, antibiotics, mebendazole, hydroxychloroquine, NAD+, and other prescriptions, All Family Pharmacy can make this all possible. So you go online, you complete a short medical form, and a licensed physician reviews your request and prescribes if appropriate. So they believe Americans should be able to make informed decisions with their doctors, and they at All Family Pharmacy help make that possible. So just go there, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Also, before we get to DC, think about this. 2006, $20,000 equaled 33 ounces of gold at spot price. At today's prices, those 33 ounces would be worth $165,000. A lot of smart Americans out there are diversifying a portion of their savings into precious metals. And that's why you might want to consider buying from our friends at Birch Gold Group, because right now they have a number of things going on. Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered retirement account. Obviously, gold has been a store of wealth for decades. They have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. And on top of that, you get that free info kit just to get things started. So at least do that today if you'd like. Just text Trump to 989898. You'll get that free info kit. It arrives on the phone. You'll be able to click on it and all that. And they don't bother you. They don't blow your phone up, as they say. They're not going to call you like crazy or anything. This is a great company to work with. Birch Gold Group. All you have to do is text Trump to 989898 as it's 1 o'clock on the East Coast. We're looking at a live picture there of the feed that's about to happen at the White House. Meantime, as we await that live feed, clip 8 shows us specifically from the White House, as seen right here on RSBN yesterday. The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, visited President Trump at the Oval Office. Here are some of the notable moments in clip 8.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. We have a meeting with a man who's become a friend of mine. Our countries get along very well. We have a great affinity for each other, and he's doing a very good job. And the relationship that we have in trade and everything else has been very strong. We've been able to do our deals.
Thank you, Mr. President, for having me here in this Oval Office for the third time now. We are on the same page in terms of getting this terrible regime in Tehran away. We have to talk about our trade agreement, which I would like to be in place as soon as possible.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Once again, of course, you saw that right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network yesterday. And if you didn't, feel free to join us anytime. We have the live stream broadcast, of course, every day, and it all has to do with the president's public schedule. And on top of that, live interviews, analysis, commentary on various stories that are happening out there, all from that perspective of God, family, country, and freedom, right? So much better than the mainstream media, if you ask me, right? All right, let's go to a couple of our sponsors as we continue to wait for the press briefing to start there. Of course, Rumble Wallet is one of them. You may have seen those conversations happening online where censorship is back, and it's happening on a lot of platforms. They're really trying to control the narratives and push the stuff they want us to see. So we can fight back in the information and financial arena. Rumble is one of the only companies that has stood the test of time and deserves our support. So on one side, Rumble is challenging big tech censorship. On the other side, they have introduced something that will give us protection from the big banks shutting us off. So they created, Rumble Wallet, a wallet that no one can cancel, and a wallet that supporters can use to instantly tip creators like us and others out there without any middleman taking the cuts. With Rumble Wallet, you can control your money. Not a bank, not a government, not a tech company, not even Rumble can touch it. So you can buy and save digital assets like Bitcoin and Tether Gold in one place. A lot of great information there for you. All you have to do is download that app if you'd like in your Google Store or the App Store there. The Google Play Store, of course. Just look up Rumble Wallet or go to wallet.rumble.com, wallet.rumble.com for more information. Also, one more sponsor as we get ready to go to DC. So we're past that whole thing where, it's the new year, new me whole thing. Well, this is the part where we either forget about it or we make it easy enough that we actually follow through. And that's where Cove Pier comes in. most people tend to go overboard buying new supplements, trying a new diet or workout, but they completely ignore the most important basic thing out there, water. Because even mild dehydration impacts energy, focus, and metabolism. And when you think about all of the stuff, all the garbage that's in our water, you're starting behind the curve before you even begin. And Cove Pure, they actually changed this immediately. They have this Cove Pure technology certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants. So pretty much everything that isn't water, the PFAs or the microplastics, the pharmaceutical residue, fluoride, it all gets removed, and it's the purest water you can get. So you have that information right there. Go to covepure.com/RSBN. It lets you choose the temperature of your water, hot, cold, warm. Just with the tap of a button, you can get boiling hot water in just 3 seconds, and it makes your water taste good, the way it's meant to be. Pure, clean, no aftertaste. So if you're trying to cut back on, some of the sugary juices and soda, it's easy with Cove Pure. Cove Pure makes it so easy to get pure water with a push of a button. So instead, again, of a big overhaul, make one small upgrade that adds up every single day, clean water, and you can get that with covepure.com/RSBN. $250 off right now. That's a special discount for a limited time. Great to have these sponsorships with us right here on Right Side to provide you all of the various news that we have been talking about for the past hour or so. And of course, we'll be going to DC there shortly. The Department of War has identified the 4 of the 6 fallen patriots who died in Operation Epic Fury. So we're going to go over the names of these great patriots. I believe we do have photos of each of them. We'll start with Sergeant First Class Nicole M. Armour. She's 39 of White Bear Lake, Minnesota. Sergeant First Class Noah L. Tejans, 42 years old of Bellevue, Nebraska. Captain Cody A. Cork, 35 of Winter Haven, Florida. And Sergeant Declan J. Cody, 20 years old of Des Moines, Iowa. Great warriors there. We know there's 6 people that have died in Operation Epic Fury so far. The military releasing those 4 photos, those 4 identities, sharing that with you here on Right Side. Of course, a lot of condolences and heartfelt condolences from the First Lady Melania Trump and all of us here at the network as well. All right, let's shift now to the southern border as we get ready to go to Washington, D.C. for this press briefing. We've been talking a lot about Operation Epic Fury. We've been talking a lot about the Save America Act. Recently, of course, we covered the Clintons' video depositions. Those are out there as well in relation to the Epstein files. Also, let's go back to the southern border for clip 10 to get an update from the southern border of the United States of America.
I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again.
We're all gas, no brakes downhill. If you think 2025 was a good year, 2026 says hold my beer.
All right, so we saw the southern border. Throughout the year here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, at least the first year of President Trump's second term, we've been covering a lot from the southern border there, whether it's just showing raw video clips from DVIDs, which is the military's video operation facility, something that you guys can go to as well if you'd like to just type in DVIDS and just check it out. A lot of stories on there, all from military journalists with the United States military. But we've been seeing, obviously, the southern border sealed almost on day one. The mass deportations, we're seeing those still happen. I know the focus right now is in the Middle East with our troops there. But we're monitoring the latest, whether it's in our country or across the world. Let's go to a couple more sponsors as we're continuing to stand by for the White House press briefing. You see angelpaste.com right there out of Spring, Texas. If you'd like to purchase a gift, you have a number of them to choose from. I believe there are lotions and mists on there that you can get. Angelpaste.com. Use that 10% off promo code. It's RSBN to get that 10% off. Great Patriots at Angel Paste in Spring, Texas. And also All Family Pharmacy. Again, at our next broadcast, as the president will be holding a roundtable in Washington, We'll be interviewing the owner of All Family Pharmacy as ivermectin is back in the headlines because the National Cancer Institute has launched early-stage lab research to study how it works in the body, including how it may interact with cancer cells. So it's not a treatment recommendation, it's simply early-stage research. But it does highlight how medications that were once pushed to the sidelines are now being studied by major institutions. And for many Americans, that raises an important question about access. So if you've been looking for a reliable place to get medications like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, mebendazole, and others, All Family Pharmacy is the place to do it. You can go online, complete a short medical form, and a licensed physician reviews your request and prescribes if appropriate. They believe Americans should be able to make informed decisions with their doctors, and All Family Pharmacy helps get the job done there. So go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, save that 10% with All Family Pharmacy. All right, we're still monitoring the latest out of the White House when it comes to the start of this press briefing with Karoline Leavitt. I'm sure a lot of people will be watching this one today, of course, on the heels of entering day 5 of Operation Epic Fury. If you'd like to follow all of us on Right Side Broadcasting Network on Truth Social, it's at RSBN. On X, it's at RSB Network. If you'd like to follow me on X, it's at Matthew US Media, and also on the great Truth Social at Matthew Alvarez. We have time for one more clip here, I believe. Let's go to clip 12 as the GOP Majority Whip Tom Emmer grilled Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison over his relationships with Somali fraudsters. So let's go to clip 12 and check it out.
Attorney General Ellison, is there an organized crime ring operating in Minnesota? I'll answer for you, sir. Governor Walz believes there is an active crime ring in our state. In October, the governor said, quote, "We've got an organized crime ring in Minnesota. I think it's been going on for years." Moving on, Mr. Ellison, I, along with millions of Americans, have grave concerns over your alleged relationships with Somali fraudsters who have since been charged and convicted of federal crimes. I'm sure you are aware that over 90% of the defendants charged in the Feeding Our Future fraud case are of Somali descent. In fact, you have personal knowledge of these people. There's a 54-minute audio tape of your meeting with these criminals in December of 2021. And during your meeting, they complained to you about increased scrutiny of their nonprofits, and you told them, quote, "Of course I'm here to help," end quote. It's on the internet. Anyone can listen to you say that.
So there you go. I mean, we see that the people in Minnesota that are not doing the right thing, a.k.a. Tim Walz and Mr. Ellison, the AG, getting grilled in D.C. about it. But at the end of the day, what does true accountability look like and transparency? And I think that's what we, the people, are looking forward to seeing. Hopefully it will happen when it comes to, bad actors out there breaking the law right in our faces. Let's be real. How about the 2020 subversion of the will of the people? This is something that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, talked about when it comes to a number of people within the deep state. So there's a lot to track. There's a lot to monitor. I know there's a lot of noise out there, but at the end of the day, again, the perspective in conservative media, at least within true conservative media, in my opinion, is all about something I've repeated a million times here on the network: God, family, country, and freedom, truth, justice, and the American way. All right, so let's go to a couple more videos as we are on standby right now for the start of the White House press briefing there in Washington, D.C. I'm going to go through some information that we've been tracking from the United States government, from President Trump, from the White House, as we are entering, of course, this is day 5 of Operation Epic Fury, as more targets in Iran are destroyed. The White House releasing a statement about Operation Epic Fury. President Trump saying, quote, "Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities. Second, we're annihilating their navy." The president also saying, third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. Finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. Again, that is a statement from President Trump on March 2nd, as today, of course, is March 4th. We'll be hearing from both Karoline Leavitt at the press briefing in just a minute. As soon as we see that feed, of course, we'll take you there. And then for our second broadcast of the day, that's happening starting at about 2:30 Eastern time, as the president will be holding a roundtable discussion there for a different matter. So will the president take questions? We'll see. It's all that kind of live event stuff that we do here at the network, right? It's a fluid situation when it comes to various events, and especially when the 24/7 news cycle kicks into high gear, as it has with this Operation Epic Fury, which we've been covering at length so over the past 5 days. Of course, we were here live on Saturday, February 28th, when it was originally launched. Meantime, we also see that the White House released information about Iran in a press release titled "The Iranian Regime's Decades of Terrorism Against our American Citizens," saying, quote, "For nearly half a century, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, has killed and maimed American citizens and service members through its own forces and proxy militias. More Americans have been killed by Iran than any other terrorist regime on earth." And let's not get it, as they say, let's not get it twisted on this situation here. As we report these various things that are happening out there, some might think, oh, you guys are all about war and troops on the ground, and none of that. We're just reporting what we're seeing out there. Obviously, Vice President Vance said to the Washington Post pretty recently that this is not a thing to be a long, drawn-out war, and that's what we're hoping we don't see. That's what a lot of people are saying out there. We've seen what has happened in the past with that. We don't want to repeat that, but what we do have is great leadership with Pete Hegseth, the Department of War Secretary, where the new competency, the new direction being taken with the military, the cuffs are off. They're able to do what they have to do to get the job done, including the surgical strikes. You know, President Trump has always been, so far, all about getting us, whether it's in Venezuela, whether it's in Iran for Operation Midnight Hammer, the recent one, it's all about surgical strikes. So that's so far what's going on. We're 5 days into it. We'll see what happens from there. I'm not a military analyst. I'm just saying it from the 30,000-foot view. That is, I think, a basic thought on both sides of the coin. People are saying, okay, surgical strike, freeing the people of Iran, okay. A long-term war where we know what happens with those. So that's the two sides of the coin there as we await Karoline Leavitt. Let's do this. Let's talk a little bit more about Operation Epic Fury, because we are witnessing, if you are just joining us and you haven't seen this is something to take a look at. As the first sinking of an enemy ship by a United States submarine, a torpedo hit an Iranian ship. This is the first time a sinking of an enemy ship has happened since World War II. This took place overnight. We're going to take a look at clip number 4 once again. I believe the beginning of this video may have something to do with a different launch, but once you see the black and white video and you hear Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, talking about it, that's the video of the torpedo taking down this enemy ship. Let's take a look again at clip 4.
In the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win.
Okay, so seeing that video again for the second time here on Right Side. Thanks again for live streaming in with us here on the network. If you'd like to share this link wherever you're watching, whether it's the RSBN app or Rumble, YouTube, X, wherever, go ahead and share that link with friends and family. As we, obviously we air a lot of the social media videos from the White House, from the Pentagon, from Central Command. Also, we bring in on a ton of guests here on the network, and we've been your live political event network for a long time, of course, for more than 10 years with President Trump's rallies over the past 10 years. So many rallies. I think I've never seen so many cameramen and people here that have the amount of miles that they have on their various flights, because we've traveled all across this country. Great to be a part of a network that is in conservative media, specifically about freedom. Great to see other conservative networks out there, but if you'd like to go ahead and pass the link along to others out there so they can watch this press briefing, please go ahead and do so. Meantime, the White House posting a video that says, quote, actually, I just heard a 30-second call, so we're not going to toss to a new video, but that video was all about the Iranian people thanking President Trump. So we'll go to that and a little bit later. Let's go to Washington now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Under the leadership of President Donald J. Trump, the rogue Iranian terrorist regime is being absolutely crushed. 47 years of tolerating and enabling the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism are over. Iran's murderous terrorist leaders are paying for their crimes against America, and they are paying in blood. Since 1979, the terrorist Iranian regime has actively and intentionally facilitated the killings of Americans. They chant death to America and fund other radical terrorists who attack our country and are seeking to destroy Western civilization itself. These terrorists seized our embassy and took 66 Americans hostage in Tehran. They slaughtered 241 U.S. service members with a truck bombing in Beirut. They killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. And this is just a small fraction of their blood-soaked record. Prior leaders have been too weak and ineffective to address this threat. Some, like Barack Hussein Obama, even sent pallets of cash that ultimately financed this terrorist crusade against the United States and our people, while signing stupid and naive deals that put Iran on the path of developing nuclear bombs. After years of endless appeasement and empty statements from politicians on both sides of the political aisle in this town, President Trump is finally the man of action. President Trump is holding these monsters accountable and permanently extinguishing their nuclear ambitions. Future generations of Americans will look to this moment as the moment where the specter of a nuclear armed Iran ended. At the beginning of Operation Epic Fury, launched last weekend, President Trump laid out clear objectives to the American people on what the U.S. military seeks to accomplish through these major combat operations. Number one, destroy the regime's deadly ballistic missiles and completely raze their missile industry to the ground. Number two, annihilate the Iranian regime's navy. And so far, we have destroyed more than 20 Iranian ships, including their top submarine last night, using a torpedo for the first time since World War II. There is not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or the Gulf of Oman. Number three, Operation Epic Fury will ensure the regime's terrorist proxies in the region can no longer destabilize the region or the free world and attack our armed forces. And thus far, Iran's proxies are hardly putting up a fight. Number four, this mission will guarantee that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. It's safe to say that thus far, Operation Epic Fury has been a resounding success. American forces have struck more than 2,000 targets, destroying hundreds and hundreds of ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. As the Department of War said this morning, we expect to have complete and total dominance over Iranian airspace in the coming hours, clearing the skies for our brave warriors to continue achieving these noble and long sought-after objectives. There's been a lot of misreporting and intellectual dishonesty from the American media on why President Trump decided to launch this operation. So let me remind you, Operation Midnight Hammer, which took place last June, obliterated Iran's 3 major nuclear sites. Yet the terrorist Iranian regime has remained fully committed to rebuilding its nuclear program. How do we know this? Because Iran has pursued this path of war and violence despite President Trump dispatching 2 of his top and most trusted negotiators to engage in exhaustive and good faith negotiations to try and reach a deal. And the world knows this president's preference is always peace and diplomacy first. Look no further than the 8 additional global conflicts he has ended in the past year as proof. Unfortunately, the terrorist Iranian regime refused to negotiate in good faith. They chose this path of violence and destruction, and they are reaping the consequences of their horrible decision. The regime did what they always have done. They lied, they delayed, they tried to string the United States of America along. They wanted to buy themselves time to continue building ballistic missiles and other deadly weaponry that could harm our U.S. personnel and troops in the region, and to continue aggressively pursuing their unacceptable nuclear ambitions. U.S. negotiators offered to lift crippling sanctions on Iran and even provide nuclear fuel to Iran at no cost to support a civil nuclear power program. They additionally had the opportunity to accept U.S. support as an investor in potential projects to develop peaceful nuclear energy together under a mutually agreed upon framework. Yet in response, Iran would have to forfeit their enrichment capacity once and for all. But Iran rejected. They accepted none of these generous and unprecedented offers by the United States. Simply put, they refused to say yes to peace. And their refusal made clear that their number one priority was building a nuclear weapon with which to threaten the United States of America. Again, the country they have been chanting death to for nearly 5 decades. Let me state this again clearly. Iran rejected the path of peace because the terrorists in charge of this regime wanted to build nuclear weapons to use against Americans and our allies. President Trump made the determination, a courageous determination and decision, that the path the United States was on with Iran had only one outcome: massive death and destruction at the hands of a nuclear-armed terroristic regime. That path of death and destruction and threats against the American people have ended with Operation Epic Fury. Operation Epic Fury has forged a new path that will better ensure the security of the United States and our people. The terrorists made a bet that President Trump would be like many of his predecessors, that he would just talk and he would refuse to enforce his clear red lines. But that has proven to be a catastrophic error in judgment. When President Trump makes a threat, and I have reiterated that threat many times from this podium to all of you over the past year, President Trump does not bluff. The president's words are backed up by the mightiest warriors in the world who possess the most sophisticated capabilities this world has ever known. 49 and counting of the most senior Iranian regime leaders, including the supreme leader, have already been wiped off the face of the earth. Make no mistake, killing these brutal terrorists is good for America and makes the world a much safer place. I want to also extend our prayers and condolences to the families of the 6 U.S. military service members who have been lost in Operation Epic Fury. These heroes represent the very best among us. They laid down their lives in defense of our country, and we will never forget their legacy or their sacrifice. As the president said, we grieve for these American patriots and their families as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. President Trump intends to attend the dignified transfer of these American heroes to stand in grief alongside their families. I understand the Department of War is working on scheduling this transfer, and we will provide updates at the appropriate time. Finally, the Trump administration is also doing everything within our power to protect Americans in harm's way. Since the launch of Operation Epic Fury, more than 17,500 Americans have safely returned home from the Middle East, with over 8,500 American citizens returning home to the United States just yesterday alone. If you are a U.S. citizen in the Middle East looking to return to the United States, the Secretary of State asks that you please register with the State Department at step.state.gov. The State Department will identify where you are and provide travel options directly to you. The administration is already rapidly chartering flights free of charge and booking commercial options, which we expect to become increasingly available as time goes on and the success of this mission further comes to fruition. I know the President and Secretary of State Rubio have been in touch as well with our allies in the region directly about this problem, making it clear that it is a priority of the United States of America to bring every American home. The Trump administration will not rest until every American is home safely and until the terrorist threat from Iran has been completely destroyed. With that, I'll take your questions. Eric, why don't you kick us off today? Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here. As you mentioned, Iran's regime, its leadership has largely been decimated. Do we have a sense right now of who is actually calling the shots in Iran? And we're also hearing reports that the Supreme Leader's son may be named his successor. Do you have any more information about that. I just had a quick follow-up as well.
Sure. We've seen those reports as well, of course, and this is something that our intelligence agencies are closely monitoring and looking at. The truth is, we'll have to wait and see. The president has said repeatedly that the objectives of Operation Epic Fury are the 4 military objectives that I laid out for you previously: to destroy Iran's navy, to destroy their ballistic missile capacity, to ensure their proxies in the region can no longer harm Americans, and to also ensure that they can never obtain a nuclear weapon. As for what comes next for Iran, the president has said, of course, it's a good thing for the United States to want freedom for the Iranian people, and ultimately we hope that freedom rests in their hands.
Caroline, we see the Arab and Muslim nations coming under fire as well. President Trump's vision for the region has been to bring the Arab and Muslim nations to the table together, Abraham Accords, obviously, with Israel. If this regime topples, could we see a new day in the region and really a new Middle East come out of this when the dust settles?
Well, the greatest deterrent to true and long-lasting peace in the Middle East has always been the rogue Iranian terrorist regime. And our Arab and Gulf partners in the nation admit that, as well as, of course, our close friend and ally Israel. We have seen all of the Arab partners in the region come together during this time on the phone with President Trump, many of them commending him for this bold and brave action to protect American troops and our bases in the region that are housed in many of these Arab and Gulf states. And I know that many of these regional partners are contributing their air defense capabilities as well: Jordan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and the president continues to be engaged with all of them. Welcome. Garrett.
Also have two, if you'll humor me. Axios, I think, was the first to report this morning this phone call between the president and Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying that Netanyahu had given the U.S. this information about where the Ayatollah would be and that he'd be with his deputies on Saturday. How important was that information in the president making the decision to strike where and when he did?
I think it was important with respect to the timeline, but I think the president, prior to that phone call, had a good feeling that the Iranian regime was going to strike the United States assets and our personnel in the region. And the president was faced with a choice. Does the United States of America use our military and our capabilities to strike first, to take out this threat that has been threatening our country and our people for 47 years, or is he going to, as commander-in-chief, sit back and watch as the rogue Iranian regime attacks our people in the region? That's obviously an unacceptable decision. For the second choice there is unacceptable to the president, which is why he made this decision. As for where the Ayatollah was going to be, that obviously had an impact on the timeline of the operation, but not quite the president's decision in its entirety.
And then on the way the public is viewing this, we were sitting here last week, I asked you if the president was going to make this a big part of the State of the Union, if he felt like he had to sell the possibility that he'd do strikes like this. We're now 5 days on. He hasn't done kind of the traditional speech to the nation part of it. Does the president believe the country supports the actions that he's taken so far in Iran?
I think he does, and I think the president knows the country is smart enough to read past many of the fake news headlines produced by people in this room that this action was unjustifiable. Again, this is a rogue terrorist regime that has been threatening the United States, our allies, and our people for 47 years. And the American people are smart enough to know that. And they've also been smart enough to listen to the president himself, not just over the past year in this second term, but during his first term as president, and also for the past 40 years of his life. This is a president who has been remarkably consistent on this issue, that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. And the president tried peace through diplomacy, exhaustively and extensively. He and his team gave it their best go, and the president ultimately came to the determination of that peace was not a pursuable path. The Iranian regime, they want death, they want destruction, they want to kill Americans, and that's unacceptable to this president. It's intolerable to him as commander-in-chief. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. Obviously seen the update from the State Department on the 17,500 Americans that have already come back, including some 8,000 just yesterday. There are still 6,000 that are looking to get out, as I understand it. And just in the context of what you just told Garrett about the president's decision on a timeline, if he had decided to do this strike before receiving, the specific intelligence about the meeting on Saturday, should there have been more done in advance of the strikes to try to get those Americans in the region resources and information to get home before day 3 of the war?
There was many signs put out by the State Department, and I wish that everyone in this room would report on them. The Secretary of State issued level 4 travel advisories dating back to January for many of these countries in the region. On January 14th, the U.S. mission to Saudi Arabia advised personnel and Americans to exercise increased caution and limit non-essential travel to any military installations. On February 11th, the U.S. Department of State Consular Affairs shared a list of countries with level 4 do not travel advisories. You can't be much more clear than that. Do not travel to these following countries. On February 23rd, the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon ordered non-emergency government personnel and family members to leave Lebanon due to safety risks, and we helped them do that. On March 2nd, the State Department urged U.S. citizens to depart Lebanon immediately. With respect to Iran, on February 27th, the Secretary designated Iran as a state of sponsor of wrongful detention and stated no American should travel to Iran for any reason. And again, on February 27th, the U.S. ambassador to Israel warned Americans to leave Iran, and they provided travel advisory alerts through the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. So the State Department was all hands on deck on advising extreme caution and do not travel alerts to Americans in the region. With respect to the Americans who are still in the region now, again, the State Department is asking that they register at the website so they can directly identify you, and we are actively and rapidly working to charter flights. There is some commercial flights that are taking off intermittently from these countries, and we plan to get Americans on board as quickly as possible, again, free of charge to them. And we have some additional measures that I think will be announced in the coming days. Again, I can also reiterate from the President's perspective, this is something he's brought up directly with our allies and partners in the region, that we expect their help in getting Americans home, and we will do that, and we will not rest until every single American is returned home safely.
Thank you. And then one follow-up just on how people might be experiencing this at home. With respect to the economy and the cost of oil spiking, is there a need to start those Navy escorts in the Strait of Hormuz now to sort of blunt the impact to people? And also, because Spain is a member of the EU, does that at all put a wrinkle in the President's plan for a trade embargo with them?
With respect to Spain, I think they heard the President's message yesterday loud and clear, and it's my understanding over the past several hours they've agreed to cooperate with the U.S. military, and so I know that the U.S. military is coordinating with their counterparts in Spain, but the President expects all of our European allies, of course, to cooperate in this long sought-after mission, not just for the United States, but also for Europe, to crush the rogue Iranian regime that, again, not only threatens America, but also threatens our European allies as well. With respect to oil prices and the economy here at home, of course, this is something that Secretary Bessent, Secretary Wright, the National Economic Council of Energy, that is led by Secretary Burgum, has been long working on and well in advance. Yesterday, President Trump announced the U.S. Development Finance Corporation will provide political risk insurance at a very reasonable price for crude carriers and cargo ships operating in and around the Gulf. And as you pointed out, Jackie, the President said if necessary and when appropriate, the U.S. Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. I think it speaks to why this action was so necessary, that ultimately the energy industry is going to benefit from the President's actions with respect to Iran, because Iran will no longer be controlling the Strait of Hormuz and restricting the free flow of energy, which, as you all know, controls 20% of the world's global oil supply. Sure.
Thanks, Karoline. The President said yesterday there wasn't time to make evacuation plans because this all happened so quickly. Given how critical the President has been of the chaotic evacuation from Afghanistan by the last administration 5 years ago, why wasn't there more of a focus on evacuation plans from the Middle East that could have been at least put in place, ready to go before the strikes this weekend?
Again, I just laid out for you that there have been plans in place and that the State Department has been very clear to the American people traveling within this region not to travel to these regions. We gave notices to leave immediately the countries where these Americans were within. And unlike the previous administration, we actually have a number. We actually have identified the number of people in the region who have requested help. We are in direct contact and engagement engagement with them. And you have to keep in mind, there's a few thousand people who have requested assistance to come home in comparison to the millions who we understand are in the region. So we will help every single American who wants to come home if they're making that request of the State Department.
Americans who called the State Department hotline as recently as last night were being told, we can't help you, you have to make your own plans.
Well, the line was updated, and I expect every single person in this room to report on that accurately, so that information can be relayed appropriately to your audiences and to the American people. I think as journalists, you all have a responsibility to let them know that the line has been updated accordingly with the proper guidance, because I saw many people in this room very quick to do selfie videos with the line yesterday, but not so quick to report on the corrected message today. So that is something the administration quickly worked to address, and we have fixed that problem. However, we're also pointing to people to the website, again, to register so that we know exactly where you are. So when there are commercial flights moving into that area, when there are chartered flights moving into that area, we can get Americans on planes as quickly as possible.
Do you have any details on how many charter flights have been able to get out of the region so far with Americans on board?
I don't have an exact count for you, but I know that we're working on chartering many flights. As soon as we were doing it yesterday, we're doing it again today. And you should not expect us to detail exactly when these flights are taking off for obvious reasons. The Iranians have shown that they are not going to hesitate to target civilians in the region, which is completely intolerable. But for safety and security reasons, we're not going to be broadcasting when flights full of Americans are going to be taking off, obviously. Danny.
At the top there, you said that the Iranian regime is being absolutely crushed. Can you explicitly say then whether or not regime change is a goal of President Trump's operation?
The goals of this operation have been made very clear, Danny, and the president has said them in his speech when he launched this operation and released that video in the middle of the night to all of you and to the world. The stated military objectives of Operation Epic Fury are as follows: eliminate Iran's ballistic missile threat, destroy their naval capability, disrupt missile and drone production infrastructure, sever their pathway and end their pathway to nuclear weapons. And I can report, as you all saw from the Pentagon today, that thus far this operation has been remarkably successful. Again, we're moving towards complete and total control of Iranian airspace. We have continuous 24/7 strike operations ongoing. We've had more than 2,000 targets that have been struck. Nearly 2,000 munitions have been employed. The first 24 hours of this campaign were described nearly as twice the scale of the 2003 shock and awe campaign. And we've seen that the enemy, the Iranian rogue regime, their retaliatory strikes against the United States and the threat reduction has reduced significantly. If you look at the Iranian ballistic missile launches, they're down 86% from day one levels. So while the United States military continues to increase its complete dominance over this rogue regime, they are weakening day by day.
Regime change is not a phrase that you would want to use.
Again, Operation Epic Fury, I just detailed the goals and objectives of this very quickly. But obviously, as the president has said numerous times, do we want to see Iran being led by a rogue terrorist regime? No, of course not. So any day the United States of America is taking out a terrorist is a good day for our country and a good day for our people.
Given that point that you just make about the United States wouldn't mind seeing the government overthrown, certainly President Trump has talked about wanting to see Iranians overthrow the government. Has the president considered at all kind of how he views a U.S. role, if any, in Iran post-conflict?
I think it's something the president is actively considering and discussing with his advisors and his national security team. But again, right now, the focus, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, is on ensuring the quick and effective success of Operation Epic Fury. Sure. Go ahead.
I want to ask you about the U.S. munitions stockpile.
I don't even know who's speaking because I wasn't looking at you. You can ask a question and then I'll go to you.
Karoline, I want to ask you about the U.S. munitions stockpile. President Trump posted on Truth Social on Monday that the U.S. still has a good supply of weapons, but that we're not where we need to be. What does he mean by that? And does President Trump then want to ask on Congress to pass a supplemental to increase funding for missile interceptor systems like the ones being used to defend U.S. bases in the Middle East from Iranian missiles?
I don't have any updates for you on congressional asks from the president. As you know, under this president, we have significantly increased our defense budget, which is a good thing for the United States, for our national security, and for protecting our homeland. With respect to munitions, ammunition, weapon stockpiles, the United States of America has more than enough capability to not only successfully execute Operation Epic Fury, but to go much further. And we have weapon stockpiles in places that many people in this world don't even know about. However, the president in that post was pointing out that, unfortunately, we had a very stupid and incompetent leader in this White House for 4 years who gave away many of our best weapons for nothing, for free, to another country very far away by the name of Ukraine. So the president was pointing out how that was an unwise decision, but nevertheless, don't doubt the strength and the might of the American military. And I will also add, President Trump has rightfully been calling on defense contractors in this country to rapidly and aggressively produce American-made weapons, because they are the best in the world, and the president always likes to get things done as quickly as possible, and so he's been quite vocal in his efforts to try to speed up our defense industry to protect our homeland.
Karoline, can we use some?
Go ahead.
Karoline, could you tell us about the president's current thinking about ground troops and whether they could be used? If they were to be sent into Iran, what would they be used for? What's the situation of that?
Well, they're not part of the plan for this operation at this time, but I certainly will never take away military options on behalf of the President of the United States or the Commander-in-Chief, and he wisely does not do the same for himself. I know there's many leaders in the past who like to take options off of the table without having a full understanding of how things could develop. So again, it's not part of the current plan, but I'm not going to remove an option for the president that is on the table. Sean.
Hey, did the United States airstrike a girls' elementary school and kill 175 people?
Not that we know of, Sean, and the Department of War is investigating this matter, and I would just tell you very strongly, the United States of America does not target civilians, unlike the rogue Iranian regime that targets civilians, that kills children, that has killed thousands of their own people in the past several weeks, and uses propaganda quite effectively, and unfortunately many people in this room have fallen for that propaganda. So I would caution you from pointing the finger at the United States of America when it comes to targeting civilians, because that's not something that these armed forces do. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. Prior to the Iran conflict, the SAVE Act was really the focus of the news cycle. Is the SAVE Act still a priority for the administration?
Absolutely.
Could you just provide an update on the administration's talks with Congress to get the SAVE Act through?
SAVE Act is absolutely still a priority for this president and the administration. The focus, of course, of much of the president's time right now is on ensuring the success of Operation Epic Fury, but the president can walk and chew gum at the same time, and he's very much continuing to focus on the issues that matter here at home for the American people, including the passage of the SAVE Act, including on bringing down the cost of living, which is why you'll see the president in about an hour and a half at the Ratepayer Protection Pledge Roundtable, where he will be sitting with big tech companies, with AI companies who are building in communities across the country and have pledged to pick up the cost of the electricity tab in these small towns and communities across the country, which is a great thing for American consumers. So you'll be hearing from the president directly on this very important domestic agenda item later this afternoon, and it's something that he mentioned in his State of the Union address. So check it off the list as another promise made and kept by this president. Sure, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. I just wanted to get back to Danny's question. So those 4 objectives that you read out do not explicitly include regime change. If those objectives were achieved and the Islamic Republic still existed, would that be an acceptable outcome?
That's a hypothetical question that I'm not going to engage in. Again, right now the president and the commander-in-chief are focused on executing the success of Operation Epic Fury, which we are already doing so in a very tremendous and impressionable way. Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. The Trump administration reportedly is considering arming Kurdish forces in the hopes of inspiring a popular uprising in Iran. Could you comment on that report?
I can comment on the fact that the president has held many calls with partners, allies, and leaders in the region, in the Middle East. He did speak to Kurdish leaders with respect to our base that we have in northern Iraq. But as for any report suggesting that the president has agreed to any such plan is completely false and should not be written.
President Trump was saying yesterday that he is okay with someone from within taking over in Iran. He spoke about how Venezuela he saw as a successful model where Delcy Rodriguez took over and had a better relationship. Iran's President Pezeshkian, he took office in 2024 as a relative reformer. He's part of a three-man council now replacing the supreme leader. Does President Trump see him as a potential successor who is more pliable?
Again, that's another hypothetical, and I haven't spoken to the president about this specific individual, so I don't want to get ahead of him on any assessments that should be made.
Thank you. Yesterday, the president acknowledged that oil prices will be a bit high. As for gas prices here in the U.S., what is the admin doing right now to counter that? I mean, should they skyrocket? Is there a plan to help, Americans right now with those higher gas prices? And then a second question. On the rash that was on the president's neck, the White House physician said it was a preventative skin cream that he was using, but why is the president using this cream? What are they trying to prevent with this cream?
To your second question, I don't have anything additional to add to the physician statement that we provided to all of you on those questions, but I know the statement said that the redness on the neck will dissipate within the next couple of weeks. To your first question about oil prices, thank God we have a president who has exuded American energy dominance over the past year, an administration that is wholeheartedly focused on keeping prices stable as best as we can. Of course, this operation is temporary to protect the homeland, but crude oil prices did fall yesterday. They remain stable today after the president announced steps to ensure the stability in global energy markets. Again, those include the DEC offering reasonably priced political risk insurance and the potential for the U.S. Navy to provide protection for the flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz. It is the president's belief and his economic team's belief that the economy continues to be very strong. It's robust and will be able to weather any of the temporary impacts of Operation Epic Fury. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Just to follow up to that, the timeline for making the Strait of Hormuz safe for oil tankers to transport their oil through the strait, what is that timeline, and what can the president do to speed up that timeline?
I don't want to commit to a timeline, but certainly it's something that is being calculated actively by both the Department of War and the Department of Energy. They're working very closely. Both secretaries are in all of the briefings on this subject with the president, and this is, again, something they're monitoring, and if and when necessary, the United States Navy will provide assistance to escort oil tankers through the strait. Caroline. Sure, in the blue.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're not in blue, Andrew. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I guess you are, sort of. I'll go to you after.
You had mentioned about the commercial aircraft being used for the evacuations. What about the use of military aircraft? Would that happen in conjunction with that or subsequent to?
That is something that is definitely underway, and of course we're going to use that in conjunction. We want as many planes, whether they're chartered, commercial, or military, taking Americans out of the Middle East and returning them safely home. So yes. Andrew, go ahead. You're welcome.
At the top of the briefing, you listed a long list of grievances against the Iranian government, going back to the takeover of the embassy in '79, barracks bombing in the 80s, etc. But no one from the administration has laid out the imminent threat that was supposed to be taken care of by this. And the rationales offered by, say, Secretary Rubio, the president's national security advisor, said that the threat was retaliation against American interests from Iran after Israeli strikes. The president says it was his own feeling that Iran was going to attack. Why is it that across the administration you can't say what the imminent threat against the United States was that required us to launch this? And also, Prime Minister Starmer told Parliament today that his reason that he didn't allow the use of British bases was that he was not satisfied that there was a lawful basis and a viable, thought-through plan. Was there an attempt to provide the UK government with a legal basis for these strikes and a viable, thought-through plan?
To the first question, I completely reject the premise of your question. You have had the President of the United States, the Secretary of War, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the Vice President of the United States, the Secretary of State, and now I am out here today to explain to you exactly what led the President to make the decision to launch Operation Epic Fury. And President Trump does not make these decisions in a vacuum. This decision to launch this operation was based on a cumulative effect of various direct threats that Iran posed to the United States of America, and the President's feeling based on fact that Iran does pose an imminent and direct threat to the United States of America, based on the fact that they are the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, based on the fact that they were rapidly and aggressively building up their ballistic missile program to give themselves immunity within their country alongside their navy, so that inside their country they could continue to create nuclear weapons and nuclear bombs, which would of course pose a risk to Americans in the region and even Americans one day here at home. And then another point on this is the President found that through these extensive, exhaustive, failed negotiations with Iran, that they were hell-bent on death and destruction. So again, the President was not going to be just another president on a very long list who sat back and stood by and passed the buck of this direct threat to the next administration. The President had a feeling, again, based on fact, that Iran was going to strike the United States, was going to strike our assets in the region, and he made a determination to launch Operation Epic Fury based on all of those reasons. And I would like the media to actually report on all of them, rather than just picking sound bites from one person in this administration and saying, oh, they're contradicting the other person. No, again, these decisions are not made in a vacuum. They are made by the President's feeling that Iran was going to strike the United States and our assets in the region, and he was not going to sit back and watch that happen. The determination was made that the President was going to strike first alongside Israel, and that has obviously been proven to be the right decision and an effective one at that. Libby, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. A two-part question for you here. First, has the President spoken with the family members of those U.S. service members that were killed? Second, given what you've outlined throughout this entire briefing, I mean, the United States has sunk a bunch of Navy ships. We've hit all of these targets. What can Americans expect the goal to be moving forward now that the U.S. has accomplished all of this? What is victory, given we've even taken out Iran's supreme leader? That was an explicit goal.
Again, victory will be determined by the Commander-in-Chief once the goals and the objectives that we have repeatedly laid out are fully realized. Again, we just, in the next few hours, will be achieving that dominance over the skies, which means the United States military will be raining missiles and weapons down on Iran to hit these specific targets that have been identified as crucial to take out by the Department of War. Caroline. John.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Has the U.S. posture changed in regard to a nuclear North Korea, given the latest strikes on Iran and the fact that the stated goal is to make sure that Iran is not a nuclear country?
I don't have any change in position with respect to North Korea today.
Thank you. A quick follow-up. There's been reports that Ali Khamenei's son has been elected as the next supreme leader. Does the administration think that he is a part of the same regime as his father? Would they like people in the country to rise up and get him out of power?
There's reports he's been elected, or that he's assuming to be elected. One of the likely options.
Pardon me, what was that?
That he's one of the likely options, or that he has been elected. Okay, yeah. So we'll wait to confirm until someone actually is elected. Caitlin.
You just mentioned that the President is going to attend the dignified transfer for these families. Given what Secretary Hegseth said this morning, is it the position of this administration that the press should not prominently cover the deaths of U.S. service members?
No, it's the position of this administration that the press in this room and the press across the country should accurately report on the success of Operation Epic Fury and the damage it is doing to the rogue Iranian regime that has threatened the lives of every single American in this room. If the Iranian regime had their choice, they would kill every single person in this room. And so we can all be very grateful that we have an administration and that we have men and women in our armed forces who are willing to sacrifice their own lives for the rest of us in this room and for every American across the country and for every troop that is based in the Middle East. That's what these...
Secretary Hegseth was complaining that it was front page news about these 6 service members who were killed.
That's not what the Secretary said, Caitlin, and that's not what the Secretary meant, and you know know it. You know you are being disingenuous. There is not, we've never had a Secretary of Defense who cares
Drones
more.
get through or tragic things happen. It's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad.
Yeah,
As you know, we cover the deaths of U.S. service members under every president.
The press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially you. No, listen to me. Especially you and especially CNN. And the Secretary of Defense cares deeply about our war fighters and our men and women in uniform. He travels all across this country to meet with them, to connect with them, and your network has hardly ever probably reported on that. You also had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Chairman Kane, who's a brave patriot, standing alongside the secretary at the Pentagon this morning, again expressing his condolences to these families. And I just told you that the President of the United States will be attending their dignified transfer. So please,
That's not making the president look bad. That's showcasing that.
We expect you to cover that as you should. We expect you to cover that as you should, Caitlin. But you and your network know that you take every single thing this administration says and tries to use it to make the president look bad. That is an objectable fact.
I don't think covering troop deaths is trying to make
If you're trying to argue right now that CNN's overwhelming coverage is not negative of President Donald Trump, I think the American people would tend to agree, and your ratings would tend to disagree with that as well. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. On the school strike, back to that for a minute. I understand that the U.S. does not target civilian infrastructure. That's what you said. Can you say that there's any evidence right now that it was not a U.S. strike? And then also, you didn't mention Israel in that. Is there any assessment about Israel's potential likely role in that, if at all?
Again, the Department of War is currently investigating this matter, but again, I will reaffirm that the Department of War and the United States Armed Forces do not target civilians, as does the Iranian regime, who kill and execute their own people. Christian.
On two separate issues, Caroline. First, what can you tell us about the military operation in Ecuador? And then secondly, is the president considering invoking the Defense Production Act to boost munition stockpiles while we are in this conflict?
It's not something I've heard the president consider, but as you know, the president has been in pretty direct correspondence and public correspondence with defense contractors, asking them to aggressively speed up their manufacturing of American-made weapons, which again are the best in the world. With respect to Ecuador, I would point you back to the statement released by the U.S. Southern Command. On March 3rd, Ecuadorian and U.S. military forces launched operations against designated terrorist organizations. These operations are a powerful example of the commitment of partners in Latin America and the Caribbean to combat the scourge of narco-terrorism. And together, we are taking decisive action to confront narco-terrorists who have long inflicted terror, violence, and corruption on citizens throughout the hemisphere. And on that, I would also add that this weekend, I'm pleased to announce, the president will welcome the heads of state from 12 nations across our Western Hemisphere in Miami, Florida on Saturday. The point of this newfound Latin America summit is to promote freedom, security, and prosperity in our region. The following countries will be in attendance: Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Honduras, Panama, Paraguay, Trinidad and Tobago, and maybe some others as well. And the president will be speaking with the leaders of this country, who have really formed a historic coalition to work together to address criminal narco-terrorist gangs and cartels and counter illegal and mass migration into not only the United States, but the Western Hemisphere, which remains a key and top priority of this president. Thank you very much, everyone, and you'll see the president yourselves in an hour.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline.
All right, so you can see the president right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network as we gear up for our second broadcast of the day. We'll be live at 2:30 Eastern. As you saw, Karoline Leavitt addressing questions about Day 5 of Operation Epic Fury. Again, this as we gear up for that second live stream broadcast starting at 2:30 Eastern time this afternoon. President Trump participates in a roundtable on a ratepayer protection pledge. We'll have that here coming up at 3 o'clock. Catch us at 2:30 for our pre-show coverage. Thanks so much for watching this live stream broadcast. I'm Matthew Alvarez. We'll see you in a little bit.